And frankly, I don't think the president is doing himself any favors on this. Uh, the other morning, he went on one of the Fox shows and he said, "What were the Ukrainians doing getting into a fight with a country 10 times stronger than they are? Of course, they're going to lose. You know, Russia's big and strong and nuclear." And what this was essentially, and this gets to another core argument of new Cold Wars, is that Trump is trying to take us back to an era where the world was not organized under the rules that were developed at the end of World War II by Truman and the whole present at the creation crowd. He is back to a world where the only thing that matters is power. And if the only thing that matters is power to you, then yeah, the Ukrainians shouldn't have gotten into a fight with Russia. Now, you may recall they were invaded. They didn't exactly like invite this fight, except if you're Donald Trump and you've taken the Putin line that Russia had no choice.
James. So, David, one of the things I've learned working overseas and thinking about is war is profitable. When I was working for Santos in Colombia, the largest sticking point in the piece that didn't hold up, by the way, thank you, won the Nobel Prize, was people were making, the FARC didn't want to give up because they were making money.
Yeah.
And the only skill you had was how to operate a machine gun. And I think sometimes people don't want to end wars because too many people are making too much money, and it keeps people employed. If that's part of your experience in being a correspondent for many years?
War makes money and sanctions make money.
Okay.
Sanctions make money. What is it? It creates a black market that frequently is dominated by the elite. So think about, for example, just to put in another location, think about Iran. So we've put so many sanctions on Iran now, you can't really figure out what it is that isn't sanctioned. But what that created was a huge black market that benefited the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, right? The core military, which dominated much of the trade. Well, you're seeing some of that going on in Russia. You know, it's a pretty corrupt system. And the sanctions that are on Russia are making, they're making a fair bit of money. And then just building up a military industrial complex that has turned the economy, given the economy sort of a drive to fuel this war. It's sort of like what happened in the United States during World War II. And then it's a really hard shift to downshift to a non-war economy when it's over.
So if you're in Brussels and you look, I think this thing started in February 2022.
That's right.
That's great. In terms of the performance of the Russian army, is it about what you expected, better than you thought, or actually worse than you thought?
I'm no great Russian historian, but people who are tell me the Russians always start wars badly, over assume what their capabilities are, get creamed, and then over time come back with the force of mass. And that's certainly what happened when Hitler invaded the Soviet Union, right?
Or
He
Napoleon, for that matter.
blitzed through. That's right. Napoleon ran into the same problem. And Al covered that story. That was a big story for him.
I called him Nappy.
Yeah. You were working for Le Figaro.
Yeah. He did some. Go back and read that stuff. These were really great stories. They came back, and eventually the force, but it took them about 3 years, repelled Hitler in what is now the parking lot of IKEA in outside Stalingrad. It's pretty wild that basically that's what's happened here, where the mass has thrown out of it. And as somebody said to me the other day, when we were up in Anchorage, the war is a meat grinder but the Russians have more meat to throw into it. And that's what's happening to Zelensky now. He's running short of people.